Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin back again. And today we have another special guest with us. We've got Max Danylenko. He's got his self-titled YouTube channel, TikTok channel, where he really just focuses in on enlightenment, awakening, and how to get there as quick as you can.
Real straightforward approach. This should be interesting.
All right, guys, won't keep you waiting. Let's get into it. Well, we're kind of like a holistic channel. What we try to do is hear from all the perspectives that are out there and give people like yourself kind of like a voice just to say what you got going on, maybe your certain beliefs and kind of what attracted me to your channel was kind of your very direct approach to kind of like awakening or the subject of enlightenment and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, fascinating.
Oh, if you guys managed to interview a Leo Guru, that would be a great guest because he awakened me. He's the guy that really started it all. I think he's the best teacher, better than me, better than anyone I've ever met. He's my favorite. If I had to pick favorites, Leo Guru is his name. Actualize.org.
We are very well. That was probably the icing on the cake for me when you mentioned in one of your videos that you were kind of a protege of his, and I was like, oh, okay. I'd like to know.
Totally devoted.
Yeah, yes. I followed Leo Guru. Justin, he showed me who Leo Guru was.
I kind of found out who he was like over 10 years ago. I was like 25 or 26 when I first started. When his YouTube channel was new, I started watching his videos. And then I eventually told James about it, and then it's kind of we've reacted to his content on this channel before.
Oh yeah, it was like the perfect funnel because he started with like law of attraction, basic self-help stuff. So even as an atheist, I believed in law of attraction and all that. So that's what glued me to him. If I saw those God videos early on, I would have scared me away. But it was like putting the medicine in the dog food, right? You got to get the dog to eat the medicine, but it's not going to eat it if you don't make it tasty. And that's what he did. I don't think he was even spiritual in the beginning. I think he was still an atheist when he started his YouTube channel. Along the way, he discovered his true nature. And I think it shocked him so much that he had to share it. And I was a skeptical atheist. I would gaslight anyone who has a spiritual or mystical experience. I would gaslight them. I would say it's just chemicals in your brain. Don't overthink this. But my devotion to him made me think, well, if someone as skeptical as he is, if he discovered it, I got to trust him. So I literally didn't believe him, but something inside me literally had to trust him because he's also half Ukrainian, half Russian like me, also came to the United States young. So people who are from Russia and Ukraine, we get a huge culture shock when we come to the United States. So I think that contributes to us needing to be open-minded and adaptive to different cultures, different ideas. He was very adaptive. That's why even as an atheist, he adopted that idea of, well, what if oneness is true? I got to prove it for myself. And he went all the way with all that, his methods are ways that no one else is going to try, like, plugging psychedelics monthly. That sounds disgusting to some people, but he's like a scientist. He's actually exploring. He's not doing it every day like a junkie, or else his business would collapse. He's still going strong on his forum. So that's why I relied on him. I thought this is a reliable figure to learn truth from. So that's my kind of caveat with Leo. So anyone who's watching this, I highly recommend checking out his videos. They're incredible.
Yeah, agreed. You got some good stuff. You've talked a little bit about your journey here, but maybe a good place to begin in all this would be kind of like more of the details on how you got to where you are now, talking on TikTok and YouTube about awakening, enlightenment. And, don't leave any details out. Let us know. I'm curious.
Well, I'll try. I still have to condense it a little bit because it's such a long, intricate, messy, gory story. But I will condense it enough to keep it, interesting, to not bore bore people. But basically, I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. I felt very different. I felt like Americans were extremely pretentious, just naturally. Like they're not like Americans. When somebody wants to learn something about a culture, they have this pretentious idea that you'll automatically just get it. Like, like when you're driving, right? And someone is a backseat driver and they want you to get into the right lane. Instead of saying that, they say, get over. Now get over it. And I'm like, get over where? Get over a breakup? Get over left? Get over right? What do you mean? And I hated how pretentious Americans were. They're just like, I don't know, move. Like they're just so unconscious. And I think that irritated me. And I didn't even know what consciousness was. I think when I came here from the Ukraine, I realized how unconscious the American public was. It's just like, like a giant shopping mall, like people just shoveling food into their faces. Oh, Sally doesn't like apples anymore. Get a load of this. Like it's so surface level. It's almost mind numbing. Like it made me want to throw up. And I thought, why do I hate Americans so much? I'm a loving person. I don't want to hate people. But as I grew up, I realized it was a consciousness thing. There are people that are actually unconscious, completely a slave to their desires and their impulses. And they never step back and be like, huh? I'm on a ball spinning around this fire furnace in space, huh? So me growing up, I always had this anger towards just society because I thought, why aren't people curious about anything? Like, this is incredible. Like, look at where we are. We're participating in this VR meat game, like whatever the hell this is. So that curiosity led me to Leo. It led me to reading the book The Secret. So my first entry into spirituality was the book The Secret by Rhonda Byron, I believe, which started the whole law of attraction craze, I believe, in the more mainstream world. So I believed in that. I believe that the way you feel seems to change your outside, even while being an atheist. I thought it was a quantum physics thing. I just thought that's just how quantum physics works. Like you want something, you get it. Still being an atheist, I discovered Leo. He was talking about infinity and love and like this bottomless pit of infinite love, infinite goodness, infinite intelligence. And then I started disassembling myself. I started realizing why I was even born. I realized why the only life that I happen to be born into happens to be the life with Leo in it, teaching me about what life is about. Isn't that suspicious, right? You guys probably don't remember your past lives necessarily, right? This is the only life you know. You only know this life. Yet it happens to be the life about figuring out what life is about. Isn't
I've
that
said this.
suspicious?
I have said that before. I
Yeah.
have said one of the things I'm common to say is jigs up reality.
Yeah.
Because I've said
Yeah,
go
yeah, yeah.
go figure it's this
Yeah.
time, and I don't know which way to take that. Like if you reverse engineer it and go, well, I only think that because of the time I'm in, or which way. But it is something that has crossed
Right.
my mind is the
Right.
peculiarity of course it's this time that
Yeah.
the only thing I said that could be crazier is if I'm reaching old age and they develop life extension and it's like, well, guess what? You don't even have to die yet. The dream's going to go on forever. I go, all right, okay. Then
It feels like that, like it'll be an option, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like then it's like clearly God dreaming this thing up forever and ever. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I'll let you go back into. I just
No,
wanted to say,
happy,
yeah, you're not
I'm happy
alone.
you
I've thought
mentioned
those
that.
things.
Yeah. No, I'm happy you mentioned that. I mean, that's basically the catalyst. What really kind of gave me that actual kundalini, that actual physiological awakening where you feel it through your body, this kind of dumping of fear, right? This kind of feeling of bravery, right? Like there's no stakes to life anymore. Like even if I cut my arm off, it's like, well, that's at most temporary, right? Or like it's like this weird hyper confidence. Well, that boiled into mania. So I actually went a little crazy for a little bit. When I had my first huge awakening was at 25. I'm 31 now. I'm just now finally maturing through it and integrating it. But at 25, I couldn't integrate it because it was too good to be true. I literally was like, you know what? Give me the highest job that I can take on earth. Oh, I'll be Jesus Christ. I will return from the Bible. I'll do it. It's okay. I can do it. Anyone can do it. It's whoever claims it. Like mine, like, like freebie, like, it's like you claim it. Whoever claims Christhood is Christ. Like,
Yeah.
I'll go on the cross, whatever. If you want to stab my organs, do it, but just not too hard because I don't know if I can leave my body just yet. I was so eager to be like almost Christ-like that to the point where I didn't realize it was a spiritual ego. It was my ego being so happy. Now I'm finally better than everyone. Now I get the respect I deserve. Now I get the love I deserve. It was my ego. And that's the biggest trap of awakening is developing a spiritual ego. I think Sadhguru has it a little bit. He's been known to, domestic violence. He's been accused of Muji, Rupert Spira. There's something in them that
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
it's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, and
then they get rigid.
when you're ready, it's
Right.
good to find out that you're not the only one that thought that. Like, hey man, there's been lots of people that came to and went, oh, I'm the one. Oh, I can save everybody. Like that is something that
Yeah, that's the
happens
feeling.
sometimes to people, and it is a lot of pressure. Sorry, I'll let you go
No,
on.
no. I have no sense of when I'm going on for too long, so it's very good for you to jump in. But the egomania, back to that, the psychosis was so insane. And I should tell this for viewers, just so people know how serious this can be. I'm a really like sane, grounded. I always grew up without any severe behavioral issues. I'm a well-rounded person, I thought. But even I was able to get a dangerous level of psychosis because what happened to me was there were police officers, right? And they handcuffed my wrists and my ankles to a stretcher. This was during the pandemic. So their hospitals were filled. There was no room in the hospital for me. So in Staten Island, this was back when I was living there, they put me in a tiny room, like a closet, basically, on a gurney, on a stretcher, with my arms tied and my legs tied, and I couldn't move or sleep or do anything. It felt like actual torture, but they had to do it because they don't know what to do with me. They can't arrest me because I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just crazy. I'm just running around yelling, right? Like that's what psychosis is. It's just like singularity, we're in the singularity, and I'm just trying to push people awake. I'm literally pushing police officers. I'm amazed that I wasn't charged for this. Like no charges. Like you're allowed to push cops as long as you're crazy. Like so I was pushing these, and they were strong. They were like these, guys that go to the gym, like 200-pound, like 6'5" guys in New York cops. But the psychosis was so powerful, I was able to push them out of my way. So 5 people had to literally pull me down. And this was around the time of the George Floyd thing, right? So when I found out what happened to him, I felt this guilt. I'm like, why did he have to go and I stayed? I had the same situation, cops trying to hold me down. They could have held my neck down just to get a better leverage, right? I could have suffocated in that situation. But why did this man suffocate? And I had this rage, right? I wanted to be an activist. I wanted to go protest the George Floyd situation and all that. And then eventually I had to calm down because what I took was this was a time when I was experimenting a little bit. I was growing my own plant medicine, my own psilocybin at home. And what happened was I took that, and a friend gave me some of his LSD. And what happened was the mixture was just too strong. It's almost like that inner child was literally just begging to come out. That childlike energy was just like, I can't take it anymore. I got to just jump around and bounce around. Kind of like the movie The Mask with Jim Carrey. That's what it
Yeah,
felt like. You just want to
yeah.
jump around and bounce around like crazy. Then I finally came down. Then I finally started talking about this stuff. I started on YouTube, didn't get any traction there. Then my friend told me about TikTok. We actually originally started making funny like skits, like SNL skits on TikTok, like just fooling around, playing on the piano, not making any quality content. And then I slowly started talking about spirituality. And I only had a minute. I was on TikTok when they only gave you a minute. So I literally had to condense those 3-hour lectures that Leo gives into a minute. And that was the boot camp that taught me to be direct. I was like, I only have a minute to tell people their true nature. How am I going to do this? So that's my intro.
Wow. Well,
Perfect.
yeah, it's
Lots
it's
to jump off
interesting
from.
it's interesting to see how things, kind of work out and where you end up and stuff like that. So, I'd like to kind of like get into, I don't know, the nitty gritty of some of this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Maybe getting some definitions might be helpful for our audience, because for our audience, they come from a vast array of different belief systems out there.
Yeah,
We have
yeah, yeah.
like a wide scope on our channel. So I think maybe something like a true self might be a good place to start. How do you see the true self?
True self or true nature interchangeably, would you say? Or just
Sure.
true, or just the true, what are you? Like, what are you, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I know. We go deep quick.
And I want everybody, because my teacher, Terrence Stevens, he's another great non-duality teacher, kind of does this. He just pauses, right? Because he wants other people to be in that same space that he is. So what I am is this space right here that really makes you feel like you're aware, that you're alive. We're not sharing it right now. We're not borrowing it from each other. We are in the same place right now. This place of awareness. We are together. We are together forever. It's not about what am I, it's about what are we. And what we are is together forever. One.
And so, where does the idea of consciousness fit into this? How does?
Okay, it's a little bit trippy, but I don't want to like, you know, because I'm gonna assume that people are watching are diverse enough where, let me use the most basic terms then. Let's start with nothing, right? I think that's a good place to start because we can at least, you know, abstract it. We can say, okay, let me imagine nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. The caveat with physical nothingness, well, not physical nothingness, but our idea of physical nothingness, like an empty physical box, right? Is that now we have this hard problem of creation. How do you take an empty box and how do you get, you know, a cat out of that thing, an apple, a dog, a particle, a subatomic particle? How do you get these particles from an actual empty box, right? You can't. Even in physics, well, you can't, because like then I'd be able to just pull a rabbit out of a hat. Then I'd be able to do this. Or I can't do that. I can't physically create something from nothing. So let's start there. The way that I look at it is there can't be a beginning, right? Because nothingness, how can nothingness have a beginning, right? It's been nothing. We've been nothing. Okay, right. That's another caveat. If you are an other, like you sitting over there, and I'll get to consciousness in this conversation. If you are an other, you would have to be another nothingness over there, right? Because one nothingness, two nothingness, three nothingness. But obviously nothing can't have two, because if they're both nothing, they're in the same field of nothing. They might as well just be all nothing. Another pointer to oneness. But then how does consciousness arise from nothing? Well, it doesn't need to arise. See, you don't need creation if you always had the nothing. You don't need to create nothing because it doesn't take any energy to create nothing. It just stayed as nothing. Nothing ever got created by anybody. Nobody stepped in and intervened and said, here's nothing, let me make something. That has never happened. Nothing remained. Nothing ever got created. And you don't need creation for creation. The way that it works is this nothing remained, but something else also remained. Nothingness from another perspective, and this is me quoting Leo, is its absolute opposite. Basically, nothingness from another perspective is its own absolute opposite, which is absoluteness of everything. Absolute infinity, absolute love, absolute goodness, absolute potential. Maybe there's a mind in there. If there's no infinite consciousness in there, this would be a missing infinity. It would be an infinity that's missing something. So this absolute all-containing infinity just happens to be a weird property of this nothing. So if your life, like literally your life doing the podcast, like watching me, if your life was not in this infinity, it would be an incomplete infinity. It would be missing something. And that's where your life comes in, because it fills that space of potential. It's like, oh, we don't have his life yet. We don't have your life yet. Let's fill it up. Beep, and you're born. So consciousness is the result of the inevitable nature of nothingness, which is inevitably infinite. And in that infinity also exists self-awareness and consciousness. That's my explanation of consciousness. I hope it's relatively clear.
Infinities couched within infinities. There's a, it's interesting. Like when I first, because I used to be just like kind of like a textbook Christian, and then I went through a period where I was just got really philosophical. And one of the first sparks is I went, well, wait a sec, where did God come from?
Yeah,
you know, let's go all the way back. Where did God come from? And then this idea of kind of spontaneous immersion became real, because I would go, well, wait a sec. First, you'd have to have a nothing, but the concept of nothing can't exist without there being a concept of everything. Like, how could there be a nothing? That's conceptually a thing. Nothingness. Right. You have to have everything. So maybe everything is just spontaneously emerging now. You know what I mean? And within that is an infinitude of things that's just sort of hard to track, you know? We have to perceive it this way, parsed off and sectioned. Otherwise, it would be, we wouldn't even be able to communicate.
People leave out the juicy parts. Like, what about infinity of humor? What about infinity of actual love? What about those butterflies you felt when you had a crush on someone in kindergarten? What if that has an infinite reservoir? Intelligence. creativity, funniness, memes. Like think of Michael Jackson, right? Once in a lifetime performer. An infinity of that. You know, like
Right.
this infinity is so mind-numbingly weird and infinite that our version of it is just, it's so subtle. It's like, you know, like our finite life, we can only have a certain amount of thoughts at a time. Isn't that like low bandwidth? Like it's kind of
Right.
funny how you can think about so many beautiful things. Like for example, right now, I wish I had the ability to fully appreciate the Titanic, all of its rooms, all of the people that lived there, like the way that it got destroyed, you know, the hearts that were broken on that ship. Like I wish I had the godly enough bandwidth to appreciate the Titanic, but I can't. I get distracted by cat videos. So I can see how consciousness is like fluid that way. Can you imagine how much God appreciates us or the universe? Like seeing this planet, how we're just, you know, in an adorable way, getting in our little cars, going to work at Chipotle or something, and then coming home. Isn't that like the most adorable thing
Talk
in life
about an
ever?
amazing vacation from godhood. What?
Yeah.
I get to drive around in a little red car today, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like a little Volkswagen Beetle, you know?
Right. And you know, and an
And then
infinite
trick myself that I'm not the one doing it.
Yeah.
That
Even
is
like this is
that
amazing. I still don't know exactly how I'm blocking myself off from your guys's, I mean, you guys' thoughts, because like obviously you guys are having some thoughts that I can't like read. I can't read your mind, but clearly you guys are having an experience and I'm blocking myself off from that somehow. Yet there are thoughts I'm having that you guys don't know about. And technically, if oneness was true, shouldn't you be able to read my thoughts? And I
I was
think,
going to say that earlier. I was going
yeah,
to say, what about telepathy? Why aren't we telepathic in this moment? But we're not, and we can
that's a
surprise
big
each other.
question. And Leo took down an episode about that. It's his solipsism episode. He took it down
Oh
because it,
oh,
yeah,
the black video.
yeah. I've
That.
seen it.
yeah, yeah, because you got to be really mature. You got to be actually emotionally ready to handle that kind of stuff. Because some people might already be a lonely kind of person. And if you hear about solipsism while you're already emotionally lonely, like, you know, you don't have a girlfriend, don't really have a best friend, you're just kind of moping around. If you hear about solipsism, it'll make you really depressed because it's pointing to loneliness. Well, in reality, it's pointing to togetherness, because togetherness and loneliness are the same. It's our ego that's making it scary, like solipsism. I'm alone. I'm alone as God.
Right.
But that's why he took that video down, I think.
Oh man, this is going to be a hard video to stay on track and not get too excited about, because I'm excited about the things you're saying. You know, like
Well, we can move them aside for sure. Solipsism is a deep topic that we can save for the end, but it's one of those topics that have puzzled me because I'm like you. You asked, where did God come from? Where did nothingness come from? But then the idea of solipsism and other have to be reconciled if you're just one, right?
oh, like I sat down
Yeah.
and I wrote it down one day. The idea of, rather than a lonely oneness or a lonely
Yeah.
aloneness, more like a absolutely comforting and complete and womb-like oneness. Like, what if
Ooh,
it's
okay,
the
womb-like.
ultimate togetherness? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
you know, you didn't feel lonely when you were part of your mother. That's the most complete and
Intimate
part of
moment.
something as
Yeah.
you can be. And maybe it's more like that, you know, just to reconcile it,
That's
to
a
ward
really
off
great,
that.
yeah, like maybe like a field. If it's a lonely infinite field, hey, but it's infinite. How lonely is something that's infinite? You know?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, I'm curious about like what is with the hidden game that goes on with kind of the awakening talk, because there's always like the people that are like waiting to be awakened, waiting for the thing to happen.
Yeah, is there
And you've
anything to
got-
wait
and then you've got
for?
your guys that are the awakened gurus. That we are, and it's there's this. Why is it so complex? What is with the complexity?
That's actually
of
a
this?
great question. Like, yeah, like how come people judge each other? Oh, he's more awake than that other person. That is a weird thing, and I think it has to do with a forgotten thing about spirituality is radical acceptance, right? Once you get to those peaks of love, once you get there, you know, basic mundane life like petting your cat, drinking coffee, it just doesn't cut it. You know, it's not the same as those really high ecstatic states. So the radical acceptance is to fall in love with the not so ecstatic states and be awake even then. And then you won't be waiting for the awakening, because all you're waiting is for a peak. If a person's like, I want to be awake already, they're just waiting for a drug high. They're waiting for a peak. Whereas the peak and the drinking of the coffee on a Monday morning, rainy Monday morning, is part of it too. seeing a rainy Monday morning and drinking coffee on your couch is part of the dream too. You got to realize you're dreaming then. And then the real awakening, which is my opinion of true awakening, is when you look at your hands, you look at both hands, and you finally start lucid dreaming. You start lucid dreaming here. You know that this is a dream enough that you're like, wait a minute, my feelings are fluid. Let me imagine this. Let me imagine I'm gonna get someone's gonna ask me to do a YouTube interview. Let me manifest that. Ooh, let me try. And then you see it and it's like, oh, magic. And then once life actually becomes like a lucid dream, I think that's as close as you can get to Christ consciousness as possible. I can't imagine anything deeper, but you can always go deeper because it's infinite. So
yeah, what holds everything at bay? I mean, like, you could once you've gone down the path of this, you could kind of look backwards and be like, oh, I can see where I've progressed a little bit in some of these ways, you know, the ability to manifest, the ability to see the insight that you said about, you know, chasing peak experiences versus being aware in the mundane and all that.
Right,
but it's still like somebody could still turn to you and go, all right, well then, like, you know, friggin' walk on water right now, or know the lottery numbers. So what holds that kind of craziness at bay? What is stopping the typical person? What's making it so that Sadhguru still has a head injury and has to go to the doctor and still gives that same answer on stage when somebody goes, do a magic trick, and he goes, well then I'll have I could pull a dove out of my pocket, but then I'll have a shitty pocket. Like, what stops the miraculous from happening everywhere if it really is, if that's what's going on? We're lucid dreaming here.
I'll tell you, it's what 99% of the population is suffering through, and that's what I'm suffering through, and that's what we're suffering through together. It's our pain body. So our pain body is being this adult, right? We still subconsciously are afraid of losing everything, winding out on the streets. That creates a fear which motivates certain impulsive behaviors, right? The thing is, the planet is designed to be frolicked through like a child, playfully, and that can be done. It's just that humans made this really complicated web of how we should be surviving, right? So we have to have all these nice things, keep them going, and then a lot of our time goes away to have all these. So basically, most people have to work 40 hours, most of their free time, be away from their friends and family, just to justify being in an air-conditioned room, right? So we've made this huge reach around, like this huge weird rigmarole just to live. And of course, being this weird, complicated adult, you're not going to be enlightened or happy. Or even if you learn about Leo Gura, Sadhguru, Muja, you listen to all of them, you're going to sit down and things are going to feel pretty crappy because of the conditioning. It's the pain. We're in pain. Like, think about it. I'm sure you guys had different issues with your father. Like, it seems like men, there's a trend where we have some kind of issues with our fathers, like some kind of issue. Like, it's rare to have saint parents, right? They're just gods. They were teenagers. They don't know what they were doing. So our anger towards our fathers, maybe the pain that we have towards our fathers, it's also like connected to the guilt, right? So there's this weird layer of background guilt that's saying, not just yet. It's not just yet to really relax. Like, you know, when you take a certain substance and suddenly you enjoy everything, like you're in a jacuzzi and let's say you take a substance and you're like, oh, I don't care about my money problems. I'll figure it out. Oh, I don't care about my issues. All the problems seem small. Now, why is that? Because we stopped closing. You know, that's what some sleeping medications do, right? Some opioids. They take away that tightness and suddenly the mundane is interesting. Right? Also,
like, the focus shifts. I think people take for granted that is when you take a substance, a lot of times people are going, how do I feel now? And that you've just become more like, if you just take this substance out of the equation and go, wait a sec, how do I feel? You know what I mean? And you become a little more aware of your breath or something like that. Yeah. Sometimes the substance is, you know, people assume that it's the substance that's causing all the elation, when sometimes it's like but you're also paying attention more since you took that substance.
Yeah. So is that the work, trying to, because I've heard some other spiritual teachers that I've read their work, and a lot of them are trying to get you to focus on your body. Like next time you're feeling anxious about something, you can't get something off of your mind. Take your attention away from that thing that you are thinking about and put it onto where are you feeling it? Where do you feel it in your body?
This brings me to an amazing point. Think about all the times in your life where you felt particularly anxious. That energy pulsing through your body could have been used for joy, right?
Yeah.
Alchemy. But you know, the conditioning made it feel like, well, this anxiety has got me through this situation before. I better feel anxiety again. Because when I did a presentation last time, I felt a little anxiety at high school or college, but the anxiety got me through the presentation. So let me feel anxious again. Or you can take that same anxious energy and be like, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. Your body doesn't know the difference. I think I read that in a book called 3-2-1 or something like that. But it basically says that anxiety and excitement is the same thing physiologically.
Yes. And I think sometimes people confuse stuff like the idea of white knuckling it. Like sometimes the all that negative energy will cause you to like veer off the road or something, or be too sick to make the deadline or something. And then on some level you interpret that as like, being this way will get me through it, like white knuckling it through, or anxietying or angering my way through this.
Anger is a big one.
We'll get through it. But I do agree. I think the energy can be transmuted towards more positive ends, more sustainable ends.
Yeah, or just released. You know, sometimes I'm sure you guys experience this. Maybe you were meditating or doing breath work, and this rage just comes out. You want to just confront this particular person because you realize what they've been doing this whole time, the game that they've been playing, and suddenly you just get it. Oh, that person was fake. And all you want to do just to protect your boundaries is to say like, hey, how could you do this to me? Blah, 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 like an angry confrontation. But what you can do is if you don't have anybody to confront and to avoid, you know, regrettable kind of actions, is just take a pillow and just to like confront the pillow, scream into the pillow. I've done that a couple of times and I felt surprisingly calm and elated after. Like it was like, oh, all right, you had your share. I'm not gonna scream at you anymore. I feel better now. And the poor pillow just took all the beating. And I feel like calm. Of course, that can be turned into a problem too. That can get addicting. If you keep screaming into a pillow, it's actually a bottomless
rage
pit.
all.
It's a bottomless pit. The rage doesn't feel like it runs out. And this, and then you did this. Wait, I forgot about this. And you did that. And the rage, it's a bottomless pit. So it's also trauma work and shadow work. You got to also know when to give it a break too, because that can become its own addiction. You know. So a lot of traps in spirituality. A lot of traps.
You mentioned there, you know, a lot of men have like issues with their fathers, and you know, and but it doesn't have to be that. You know, it can be people having issues with their mothers or their siblings, or betrayal from when they were young. And it's amazing that, you know, with a consciousness work, you could still have sticking points. Like I think you could raise your consciousness quite a bit, but in a relationship still be like suspicious or jealous or...
Perfect example of that is actually Steve Jobs, believe it or not. He went to India when he was young. He took a lot of LSD. A lot of people said he was enlightened in a lot of ways, but he was also cruel, because for him to get his needs met, and his needs was literally to change the universe. He literally said once, I want to leave a ding in the universe after I'm gone. And Steve Jobs also said, the people that are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are usually the ones that do. So his craziness and his mania fueled the invention of the personal computer and the phone, which we use now to this day. So a psychedelic is the reason why we have this technology in the first place, which is so miraculous. But interpersonally, he never healed that trauma. He did scream therapy. I read his biography. Steve Jobs did do scream therapy. He screamed in the woods and tried, because he was adopted. So he had a lot of hatred towards and anger towards his biological parents. Like, why did they just not take him in? They were good people. They were healthy people. Why did they abandon him? And in psychology, they say those that get abandon others. That's why Steve Jobs abandoned his own daughter and didn't claim her as his own. So he's a really interesting person to study in terms of a spiritual person that really did change the world. But he's an example of not working through all the trauma, and that's why interpersonally he was an asshole. Everyone knows Steve Jobs as an asshole, and that's just he would laugh it off right now. He knows it. Like he accepts. He's like, it's just the way I am. You know, when you read his book, it's amazing. You really feel that way he feels.
Oh yeah, what was the book? What you were telling me that the book on his book on his desk end when he died was
Yogananda's autobiography,
he
Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography. Wasn't that like his last book that was it was either on his phone or he left it for everyone at his funeral? Was the
I didn't hear about that. I got to check that out.
And I could be getting that story wrong. I hope I'm not getting
it. It sounds right, though.
Yeah.
And I've heard he experimented with psychedelics in his life, and you know, and you could say that even about like enlightened masters, like the controversy that follows gurus and enlightened people around. Like you're still a human, man. You still like can get sick. You can still eat a bad taco, and you know have to like you're still humbled by
you get the munchies and eat like 1,000 tacos. One of them is going to be bad.
Yeah, and your errors are probably going to stick out because usually you probably have an audience of people that are paying attention to you. So every little thing that you do is going to stick out.
I fixed my hair once during a live stream. They're like, look at him, cares about vanity. He's not awake.
Oh, geez, that ship has sailed for me.
They pick me apart like you wouldn't believe. And oh man, but it's a good boot camp for being emotionally intelligent, because I really did used to respond. I used to go on having little fights. There was this one guy, maybe you've seen him in my comments once in a while, is the most difficult kind of human being I can imagine. He calls himself a monk. He calls himself a Buddhist. His name is Monks of the Way. He dresses up as a monk. That's his thing. That's his theme. But anytime I tell him anything about the Buddha, he's like, there's no factual evidence that we're one. There's no factual evidence that we're this. And it's like, well, all right, man. I mean, if you're kind of scientific, why are you being a Buddhist also? And we would go into these little fights, and he would have some kernel of truth. Like, hey, you don't know this for sure. You've never been the whole universe. He would try to like find a kernel of truth and make me doubt myself. But then I realized it was just a form of like spiritual gaslighting, because it's like, I know the truth because it can't be any other way. Where would these 2 points be, right? If there was true separateness and you're going to die and I'm going to die and we're never going to be alive ever again, and it's really that bleak, where would these 2 separate points magically be for all eternity? That seems weirder to me. Separation now seems weird, and unity makes more sense. So yeah, but about responding emotionally, I had to really learn emotional intelligence with answering my comments, because there's a lot of, especially with something touchy like religion, there's a lot of negativity in my comments, especially like, 30 to 40% of it, which I have to deal with, and it's a good learning experience.
Oh yeah, sometimes the most ignorant person can be like a good teacher, and
there
are actually awakened teachers that their method is to push your buttons and find, because I have a thing myself where I'm a bit controlling. I like things to flow in a certain way.
Me too.
And I have to see that can hold you back. It can hold me back, not being willing to be even humbled if the situation calls for it. And so it's amazing. I've known some real psychos in my time that, the one thing they're good at is seeing right through stuff and just like knowing things about you, And,
one of the best psychologists in the world aren't psychologists. They're sociopaths, psychopaths, and narcissists, because they had to be psychologists from a young age to manipulate their parents, to manipulate people around them. You see it, I'm not going to talk about politics, but you guys can see that. I'll just hint at that. But we can learn a lot about psychology through politics and paying attention, because it is part of the world. We use money. We're not in a commune right now. We pay taxes with all that. So I encourage all viewers this election cycle to participate. That's just my personal opinion, but we should participate and follow our hearts, make the choice that our heart is telling us. And but back to what we were saying before about the useful people like that. Yeah, with my worst relationships, well, I had a female narcissist in my life. My worst relationship with that led to my first and greatest awakening, because her telling me everything that I'm not, right? Because a narcissistic girlfriend or boyfriend will do that, like a Karen, they'll pick you apart. But then you have to realize, wait, well, if I'm not these things, I got to figure out what I really am. So a narcissistic, toxic relationship can be an amazing springboard for awakening.
Yeah, they won't pull any punches if they're hell-bent on hurting you.
We've talked a lot about the traps and some of the things that people can kind of get caught in, like a lot, which is good, because I think it opens room for a topic of how maybe best to approach awakening. If you're new to this game and you start hearing people talking about this and this curiosity bubbling up within you, what do you suggest for someone just getting started in this?
I have something. Yeah, so this might be inverted. Actually, it shouldn't be. Right here.
Yep.
Oh,
The
I've
Unearthed
heard of this
Soul.
book. I want to read this. I've
The
heard of this book,
Untethered
and
Soul.
I want to read this book because you're not the first person that's shown me that.
The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself, Michael J. Singer. Deepak Chopra said, read this book carefully and you will get more than a glimpse of eternity. So if you
Whoa.
guys haven't even touched it, you would love the audiobook. I've never heard a simpler audiobook. It talks about that inner voice as an inner roommate. Like imagine you had a roommate telling you every thought that you think, all 70,000 thoughts or 60,000 thoughts. You would hate that. That would be so annoying. Like imagine someone sitting with you, you're watching a movie and they're like, I'm hungry. That actor's face is weird. Why is his chin huge and his head is like smaller? I want popcorn. I wish I had the munchies right now. Or maybe my dealer's around. Like imagine a person just nonstop. But if we were to see a person like that outside walking, talking to himself, we would think that person is absolutely insane. Yet 90% of us do that. We talk to ourselves like an insane person, where the moment is already happening. Why does it need to be commentary? The happening is happening, right?
The first time I got a glimpse of that, I realized my thoughts were being read out like a I won't explain the whole circumstance that led to this, but it was essentially early the next morning, and I could see my thoughts like a teleprompter, just like, wow, that was crazy. Well, you know, and I was like watching it, like, who is this chatterbox?
Not you.
That's just rattling off information in my mind. It was the first time I saw, like, from that perspective, the internal monologue.
This perfectly melts into the topic of free will, because notice you felt like you had free will, but against your will, this teleprompter was happening. But even right now, as we're speaking, it feels like we're activating our will, but the teleprompter is still going. The teleprompter is saying what I should say. The teleprompter is telling you what to feel, how to emote from what I'm saying.
What question to ask.
And it's a movie about like your little inner worlds. Like I have an inner world, but your inner world, right? You feel like the headphone on you. You feel like, like I'm getting itchy. I hope this doesn't last like 4 hours. I hope this is relatively short. Maybe that's what you're thinking. But you're watching a movie about someone thinking about
It's all software. This is all software running through hardware.
AMC, like, you know, AMC coming soon to a theater near you. Thoughts playing. Time to go to the bathroom. Time to do this. A movie about all that is what is happening, which is incredible, because it's like the Big Bang had to happen the way that it happened for me to go place my order at McDonald's, the way that I'm placing it, the way that I am right now, the things that I'm saying right now. If the Big Bang were any different, I'd be saying different things. So I have to give all my devotion and free will to the spark of the Big Bang, even if whether it happened or not, it doesn't matter whether you believe. The point is whatever pushed the dominoes of creation has all the free will. Right? Because if you push the dominoes differently, your will right now would be different.
Who is this meta identity that's interested in having the computer software get to a point where it's like, we are sentient, we are noticing that we are code. What's going on here?
Or those little daydreams, those cringy daydreams that we have. Maybe we see a cute girl at a coffee shop and we're like, well, what if I talk to her? Like, what would that look like? Like, what would she flirt with? Would she flirt with me if I flirt with her? And like these cringy kind of daydreams, it's weird that the Big Bang wants to have that right now. Like the Big Bang is like, I got to create all these planets, all these solar systems, so I can have these weird daydreams while I'm at the coffee shop, right? Or this weird little embarrassing moment of you, like, you know, stubbing your toe in front of everyone or something. You know what I mean? Those weird nuanced moments are determined, which is crazy.
Well, I think a lot of thought, like as crazy and personal as thoughts can be, you know, like you can have some pretty transcendent experiences internally, but I actually think a lot of that gets, like, all of it arguably gets lumped into, like, what if all dialogue, all thought dialogue actually could be rooted back to survival mechanisms? Like, you know, everything you think is you is like can be rooted far back into the, you know, processes of survival. You know,
there's some science behind that. There's some scientists that say that early cavemen, they didn't have thoughts the way we have thoughts, where we can ponder about stuff. They just have like this meaning that enters their brain, like, need to go hunt, need to do this thing. And it wasn't like a thought like, I'm gonna grab a spear and I'm gonna shoot it at this creature. It wasn't like that. It was more like but it was still a meaning machine. You know, people that don't have an inner monologue. I always wonder that, people who don't like speak to
Yes.
themselves or
Yeah,
read.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
I actually have an objection to those people because it's not like they don't think. If they didn't think, they'd probably be in bliss all the time, like they're on heroin or something. I think they do experience meaning and like an emotion from like a concept, right? Like, ooh, I hope I'm not going to be late today. They have to be experiencing that concept even without an inner monologue.
Right. It's almost like in modern for the last 2,000 years, we've become like addicted to symbols and conceptuality. Like I don't know
Yes.
if you've ever heard of the book "The Master and His Emissary." I think that's the
Mm,
name of the book.
I should
Talks a
check
lot
it out.
about the hemispheric, the right brain, left brain stuff, and how
Right.
one side is responsible for like open mindedness and intake, and the other one's highly analytical and logical, and how we've kind of developed this issue over the which maybe is why for the last couple of thousand years, or maybe 2 to 3,000 years, you have figures like Christ and the Buddha emerging that are like, let go, like don't be so logic
Yeah,
based. And
protective. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
I'm
think
just saying there's some
fear might
science
be,
there.
maybe fear is the root of all overthinking. That's actually a theory of mine. It's like our parents taught us to like be good in school, right? To like always be hyper aware of ourselves, make sure we get good grades, like all this, that it makes us like feel guilty almost 24/7, and we soothe that guilt with thought. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like some of my deeper kind of feelings. Maybe we're self-soothing every minute, right?
Yeah, yep,
A lot
yep,
of this knowledge
yes.
seems to like be ancient in nature, and I'm curious what you think about the idea of it evolving over time. I feel
Hmm.
like if you analyze, especially like Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, Veda Vedanta, these religions, I think it's interesting on your YouTube channel how it says just in the comments about your YouTube channel, get enlightened in 15 minutes or less.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
uh, is that too, I don't know if presumptuous is to say, or is it too
That's so
like
good you pointed that out. That's what happens when you open a YouTube channel, start a TikTok, and forget about your YouTube channel. I've grown so much that I'm just like, are you kidding me? What is this, like Billy Mays, like infomercial? Get enlightened now for $14.95 today. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's what it's not like you can't market it like that. I think the best way to market it is to pretend to be like a regular anxiety kind of coach, like where, oh, I'll teach you breath work, I'll teach you basic meditation, and then when people enjoy the meditation, that's when you can lure them in with more deeper topics. That's what I've been doing with my TikTok, which works a lot better than being like, you don't know what enlightenment means? Find out, like to 9.95. Like it's really not like that. But it's funny you mentioned that. My YouTube channel is essentially just there because I don't know what to do with it. I don't want to delete it, but I also don't want to keep working on it because the ADHD will not let me work on two channels at
just
once. I
take
can
your
barely manage
TikToks and
one.
put it on. Just take your TikToks and put it on there.
I was thinking of just doing basic shorts, like vertical shorts, and just
You
copy and pasting.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You don't even have to trim them up. You can put them in as full length sections. Whatever you're using for your TikTok, you can
Oh
just
yeah.
double
Yeah, you're
paste
right.
it.
I should get on that. It's just by the time I'm done like managing my own TikTok, I don't have enough energy.
I
It's an
get it.
ADHD thing. I should be managing honestly three different TikToks. One TikTok for spirituality, one TikTok for music, and one for comedy. Because believe it
Mm.
or not, I'm more excited about performing music in front of people or comedy than I am teaching spirituality.
Mm.
Spirituality is just like my 9 to 5. It's like my day job. It's not really. It is my passion, but believe it or not, it's not my highest passion. It's music and comedy because I feel like comedy is a high vibration and music is a high vibration
Oh yeah, I
naturally.
love that. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
even love the story of, I can't remember any of the details, but it goes a little something like this. There was a guy that was known for going around and arguing, like pessimistically arguing, and he was a high intellectual guy. Maybe somebody in the comments knows what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Anyway, he was seen, and he always had this kind of cantankerous character. And then he was seen off duty, like dancing in a bar or something like that. And they're like, "What the hell? Your whole thing was like how miserable everything is, and you're this
Ah.
intellectual." And he was like, "That's my job. That's for everybody. This is for me. I'm enjoying myself."
That's
And it's
actually a
like,
good bit, like a stand-up bit almost.
yeah,
Like I'm
I love the opposite of like, or I love the idea of like the reverse of a guru or something. Like sometimes you imagine these
Mhm.
gurus that spend hours like in bliss in front of people. Maybe they're grouchy, abusive people behind the scenes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
imagining somebody that's aggressive and mean, who's really likable and nice in real life because that's their day job.
Yeah, that's I like that. I like that. Yeah, there's always counterintuitive ways of leading everyone to awakening, but what's funny is everyone's already led to awakening. That's why we die in the first place, so that awakening is basically guaranteed. That's our insurance policy for awakening. If you're not awakened now, you will be, but you can be here, which is the fun part, which is the juicy part. You were talking about evolution before. This is not an evolution of physicality. It's an evolution of emotion and vibration. So what's going to happen is once humanity realizes oneness, I believe, not to predict the future too much, but I feel like there could be a huge split. Like half of the planet is going to want to live a whole different way, like communities, gardens, a simple lifestyle, universal basic income, and then the half the planet will want the old way. And I think when enough people are in a high enough vibration, I think that's when we can possibly have open contact by other beings that are also sharing that same vibration. And only then we can actually understand their communication. Otherwise, if they speak to us now, people would throw up. It would be overwhelming. Their vibration is just too
That's
good,
this
too
guy's
high.
whole thing. He loves
Yeah.
aliens. He's like, he
Yeah.
wants us to.
But
There's
joke-
legitimacy to this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we joke about it all the time though. Like if they came back and saw us now, we probably look like so unconscious, like gnawing on carcasses of other animals, like
Basically what we're doing. Yeah.
they're like they probably look at warring, blowing each other up, fighting over elections, all the stuff that we do. I don't think we're ready for contact yet.
I think
like
they
what
will
you
only
said, that-
intervene as far as the nuclear question, because I think they, from what you've listened to, I'm sure, is that they only started popping up and really monitoring us when they realized we started playing around with nuclear weapons, because they're like, oh, wait, you guys don't even know how to treat each other well, yet you already have a bomb to end each other.
I love what you said there about if we made contact with aliens and we saw what they were doing, we might throw up. Like we'd be so shocked, because if you sent footage of what we're up to backwards in time 100 years, people would probably they'd be like, what the hell?
They'd be like, you're watching each other on these little mirrors. What are you doing?
yeah. Now 90% of your internet is for this, But really, both ways, if they sent their footage of what they were really up to forwards through time, we'd probably be like, good Lord. You know what I mean? Like it would be so alien. With a
maybe
capital A.
they can be like a high, like, see, we honor our own individuality, right? But individuality creates the kind of capitalism that makes people, everyone's hoarding wealth, but naturally not sharing it, because we're all trying to hoard in capitalism. But maybe that's why individuality doesn't works to an extent. They probably have a more hive kind of understand. If they're feeling good, if they're feeling something, they'll just feel that in unison. I think they just kind of can get together and just be this orb of goodness. They don't need to be like, hey, can I tell you a joke? It's really funny, blah, 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 ha, ha, ha. They don't need that transaction. They just give you the laughter, right? Like, just laugh.
It's so
like,
funny. You're such a clever young guy there, because
it's hard to communicate this stuff, really.
Well,
but
I've said before to
to
James, I'm like, maybe the future is we'll get together, so we go to get-togethers together, right? And I'll be like, maybe, and sometimes there's arguments and politics and gossip and all this stuff. And I said, maybe in the future people will get to a point where we can just sit together and shut the hell up. You know what I mean? Like,
maybe that's what aliens do. Maybe that's
enjoy sacred silence or something together.
Enjoy just the presence of being in the same room rather than needing to fill with noise.
Right. There's all these levels of what's the more evolved group of people? Like, here's a group of people, they're all drunk. They've all drinking a bunch of booze and they're yelling their argument points at each other.
Well, here's the good news. If I could add some good news, is that whatever we're evolving into, I believe it's the best thing we could possibly evolve into, which is what makes all the pain on earth worthwhile. It's like, why would God put himself or itself through the Holocaust or through murder, rape, like pedophilia, all these nasty things that we don't even want to imagine that we're capable of, right? Like, we don't even want to think about that, where we're thankful we're not these kinds of beings. But think about how good that end result must be if it's willing to put itself through that, if it's willing to endure something like the Holocaust, something like a presidency where you're oppressed and you're poor, or think of any kind of suffering. If it's willing to suffer in order to have forms, in order to have others and be real, think about how deep its love is. Like, for example, it could be by itself and in bliss for eternity. It has that option. No one says that this infinite singularity has to suffer, but that's the trade-off for creating an other. See, let's say I create you. The downside of me creating you is we might argue, we might hurt each other. But if I don't create you, I'll truly be alone. So now I have a huge question on my hands. Am I willing to feel pain, physical pain of being born, of cutting my hands sometimes, of hurting, of crying, of pain, just so that I can sit on a campfire with you and share my goodness? And the answer is yes. And that's when Adam and Eve bit the apple and you were born. The other option would have been just to stay as bliss, as goodness, as love, and not share it with a single being. You don't suffer, but you have nobody to share it with. So I think that's my forgiveness for all the suffering. That's how I forgive it in my own body. It's like, how do I forgive the suffering that I went through? Is I have to figure out why I chose suffering. And it's to create another, I think.
There's a bunch of axioms and verses and stuff throughout time. Like you think of the one that says, "God won't give you more than you can handle." I'm not advocating one set of belief. I'm just saying that it also makes me think of even, knocking the door will be open to you. Like if you want to know, it's an invitation. Like if you're like, I want to know why I've suffered. Maybe if you have faith, you'll get an answer. So that you can get to that point where you go, I can't believe it turned out to be worth it. It was all worth it in the end.
More than
the offer is there. Yeah. Or if you want, because you're free, you can close up and go, no, I choose hate and I choose to not know and be hateful instead. Or you could knock and the door be open to you and realize that there was, who knew? It's like there's another thing that talks about the woman after she goes through the birth pains when she's holding her baby isn't sitting there lamenting the birth pains. She's basking with her baby. Almost like she forgot about everything that went.
And she's excited to have another child. There's so much love involved that she's willing to go through the trenches again. Yeah, it's like this. It's form. That's how we get form. It's an exchange for form, right? There's blood flowing through our bodies. There's entropy. But now the idea of death, it used to be my scariest kind of concept. Now my favorite thing about life is death. Because what's more exciting than getting to find out what you are and what you get to do? But doesn't mean you need to leave early and check out. It means that you're happy to be alive, but at the same time you have this, not that you're looking forward to death, but the curiosity about death makes it not so scary. Right? Yeah. It's not as scary when you're curious.
Yeah. I just wanted to jump in because given everything that you've said, there's sometimes this stuff can be misunderstood, can be easily misinterpreted. And I assume that everything's coming from a good place. And I would just invite everybody who's watching to have a little bit of patience, because some of these concepts are really not easy to convey. And there's a lot of room for them to come off wrong. But you mean well, you clearly care about other people and social issues and all those things, and I do too. And I just wanted to the thing about death, like that's a tough one, but and I say this with a disclaimer. It's like sometimes I thought if somebody asked me what's the point of life, my answer might be, given who I'm talking to in the time, my answer might be like, the point of life is death. That's the point. Doesn't mean go kill yourself. That's not alert. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm saying you've got a whole life to prepare for something that happens to all of us. This is the great equalizer. It's the only thing that literally happens to all of us. It unites us.
We share the same destiny. My number one thing I love to say on my TikToks is like, we got a terminal illness. We're only going to be alive for a certain amount of seconds longer, right? We got the seconds are ticking. How awesome it is that we all have this terminal illness and we can rejoice in our journey towards it. It's not about trying to get there faster, because that's harming the body, and I never advise harming the body. So when I'm talking about death, I'm talking about it in the terms of like, what could possibly be this thing that people talk about, like, wow, when I was there, I finally felt accepted. Wow, when I was over there, you know, near-death experiences, people come
Yes.
back and they say, I finally felt that acceptance, that feeling like I'm part of the cool club. I'm not like separate from, you know, that feeling when you see a rich house and you're like, I'm never gonna have the discipline to be like this Jeff Bezos guy, his stupid yacht. I mean, I would love a yacht, but I'm never gonna get one. And we always feel like these people are in a secret club.
Yes.
And I feel like death is the realization that you were the secret club the whole
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I
either
mean, you
way.
were the thing, you were it. But the
Yeah.
excitement now is to bring that lighthearted, fearless energy into your life so that you follow your dreams. The beauty of not fearing death is not dying. The beauty of fearing death, not fearing death, is now you can live. Now you can
Right.
fearlessly do stand-up comedy on stage, make jokes,
Yes.
be cringy,
Yes.
even if people are dead silent and it's awkward. You keep
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
because it's so much fun.
It's
Right.
funny.
You
Well,
see?
yeah, because you worry sometimes about, like, whenever you're creating content or whatever you're
Yes.
doing and putting yourself out there for the world
Yeah.
to see, you know, whether or not I slip up or I don't, how good I do, or if everyone ends up hating me, regardless, it's all gonna be gone anyway.
You're right. So it's like, what is it going to take for you to enjoy the present moment like you did as a child? I mean, you even have that
Yeah.
to reference your
Yeah.
childhood self that would frolic free from thinking, what is it going to take? How about this? You're going to be dead so long, it's going to be as if you never even existed to begin
Yeah,
with.
so
just
true. Yeah.
do what you want now. You know what I mean? But while you can, while it's happening and palpable.
Plus, you're in a
And-
goddamn dream. Like, come on. Like, it's just as temporary as a dream, right? This is what I tell people. Even if you don't believe that life is a dream, you would have to agree that it's just as fleeting as a dream, right? A dream happens, then it ends. A life happens, then it ends.
Yeah.
They behave the same way. Relative to all of eternity, 80 years is a dream. I mean, it's a short dream relative
Nothing.
to eternity. It's nothing, right?
Compared
right.
to eternity, it's like it didn't even happen. That's how brief
Exactly,
it is,
exactly,
right? And but
exactly.
lo and behold, the miracle. This is happening right now. We're all three doing this right now. It's miraculous. So I think that's a good.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at you guys, and I'm having these mystical thoughts like, wow, I can't believe I figured it out. I just wanted to be in a man cave and chill with some homies, and I figured it out. Like, that's what this feels like, right? We're just chilling and talking, but see, I was willing to go through all that pain just so that I could have you guys as others. I think that's what consciousness does. It's willing to take these sacrifices onto itself to share itself. And what's more beautiful than that? I can't think of anything more beautiful
like
than
this
the
hot
idea of
room
that.
that we keep recording in, where by the end of the interview, I'm sweating to death.
Yeah, I get passionate. I get really that's why I get drained. If I do a live stream, I would love to stream longer. I'd probably earn a little bit more clients and money and followers. But I'm so passionate that I just drains me. Like, that's why social things, like, if I'm done with them, I feel like I'm like a wet noodle or a wet mop. Like, I'm drained because I really do put a lot of love into everything I say. Because it is that beautiful. For anyone that's watching, enlightenment is not a gimmick. It's a thing. Enlightenment is real. I want people to at least know that it is real. How you get there are a billion different ways and a billion different resources as to how to get there. But it is a thing. It is real. And I've had it in, like, bursts. Like, I could have it for 3 months at a time. You can call it a manic episode, but think about it. All of my TikToks were made during a manic episode. I just tamed the mania. I do ice baths. I do breath work. I can get carried away. I can talk a lot, not be aware enough to let people talk. Like, I have my own, psychological issues. But mania is a beautiful thing, and you can tame it as long as you know that it has a creative force. Because when you take medication for mania, you should take medication if you need it to manage life. But sometimes the downside of taking pharmaceuticals is they kind of put a cap on your creativity a little bit. Whereas when you have mania and let it go, the music you can make, the jokes that you can make, the conversations you can have, that's the beautiful part of the mania.
Oh, there's an emerging conversation. I can't believe it took this long. Well, maybe I just didn't see it before, but I've noticed that breaking out into the mainstream, especially in spirituality, this conversation about the like mania playing a role here, because you might be like, was Christ in mania when he did the Beatitudes Sermon on the Mount? Like, sometimes when somebody's in mania, they have a lot of the telltale signs of somebody that's like undergoing a satori or something, like they're they just want to share how beautiful it all is or something.
It's overwhelming, and you feel this tragedy because the first person you meet on the street or in your family is that much more asleep than you, and you're like, you don't get it. I just discovered a pot of gold. Like, it's better than the lottery. It's the best thing you could discover, but I don't know how to tell it to you. And you're just stuck, kind of like all dressed up or nowhere to go. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, Max, I gotta thank you so much for being on the show. That was a fast hour, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, wow, that felt longer than an hour.
Yeah,
that
it was
felt
a little
longer.
bit. It was a little bit longer, but
So many things could branch out. I would love to come back in like a month or whatever your schedule is. If you ever want to have me on again and people like it, get some kind of interestingness from it. If you need my website, I can give you that later or now, whatever you prefer. If people want to find me, but yeah, I encourage everyone just to take it easy. You're in the right place. If life feels messy or weird or strange or depressing, you're still in the right spot, because I've been homeless twice. I've been an addict, and I had every right to feel hopeless, and you would be hopeless too. If I can make it out, anyone who's breathing, anyone who has air in their lungs can change. So there's hope. I just want to end it on a hopeful note.
Love that message, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was awesome.
Thank you.